All right, so if you tune your car or put enough modifications on it, but more specifically if you tune the car, these Elantra ends have a really bad habit of needing a lot more fuel pump. Well, today on Murphy's Law Garage, we're going to show you how not to blow your car up for relatively little money. And it's actually really easy to replace the high pressure fuel pump on these cars.
And it's such an easy peace of mind to do as well.
Oh yeah, for sure you're not going to end up leaning the car out once it's tuned or modified and end up hurting it, which some people have. So stick around with us. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to replace the high pressure fuel pump. Be right back. Dang it. All right, so very easy. The first thing you need to do to get to that high pressure fuel pump, which is hiding right there, is to pop this engine cover off. It's so easy, even Jacob could do it. So
then why isn't he doing it?
I don't know. Here, he can hold the engine cover. He might not mess that up. Next thing is to pull this foam off right here. Now the high pressure fuel pump is right underneath here. You can see here that this is ripped. And why, might you ask? Well, I've already taken this high pressure fuel pump off and replaced it. I'm going to show you the new part number for the high pressure fuel pump you need to order. It's for the Sonata N, right?
No, the old Sonata with the 2-liter turbo.
Okay, the old Sonata with the 2-liter turbo has a higher flow high pressure fuel pump. So here's the picture right here. And that is what we're about to put in here. I've already done it, so I'm just going to take it off and put it back on again so you can see how easy it is. But now that the neighbor's straight
V6 straight
pipe 3.7 Mustang has fired up and left. So like I said, I'm just going to pull it off and put it back on again so you can see how easy this is. Now, taking this cover off, you're going to want to like squeeze right here and lift up on it to get it off. But you'll probably still end up ripping it like I've done now for the second time.
Away from that damn thing.
So yeah, it's probably going to get a rip in it. All this is here for is sound isolation from the high pressure. It doesn't even really need to be here, though it does have some heat blocking for the turbo, which is right there. Just be careful and don't be surprised if you put a rip in it like this, because I don't know of any way to get this off that doesn't involve this getting a rip in it. All right, so next thing you're going to do is squeeze these two tabs and pull the fuse box cover off. I'm going to be looking for the relay that is for the fuel pump, which shouldn't be too difficult to find. I've found it once before. How hard could this be? Oh, look right here. See, fuel pump relay. So whenever you're looking at it like this, it's the same direction like this. This is where the battery connections are on it. Here's all of these fuses, all of these fuses. Here's our spare fuse. And then we have these two, which is for the heaters. And then right here, you see fuel pump, fuel pump. We want this guy right here to come out.
Just don't remove the ones for the DCT. I'll not have a good time.
It'll go through a relearn if we do that.
I have no idea. I don't want to risk it either.
Let me grab my handy dandy relay puller here. Do like that. We're gonna pop that out and then we're gonna sit it to the side. And the reason we're gonna do that is we want the motor to run for a while and run the high pressure fuel pump out of fuel. There is a lift pump in the tank, and then there's the high pressure fuel pump. The high pressure fuel pump will work regardless of whether or not you pull this fuse, because it's mechanically driven off of the camshaft. But we need the pump in the tank to stop lifting fuel to the high pressure fuel pump so that we don't make a squirty mess. Though that's good in some situations, it's not good in this situation. So what we're gonna do now is fire the car up, and it's gonna run for a lot longer than you think it will, and then die. And once it dies, we can pull the fuel pump off, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're gonna let it idle here for a while, and like I said, it's gonna run. You can hear that the high pressure fuel pump just ran out of fuel, but it's gonna run for a lot longer than you think it will. You just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting waiting. It's gonna happen, I swear. Like, you'll just be like, this thing will never die. Do not rev the motor because you could spool the turbo and lean it out. So you just sit and wait and wait and wait. Oh, it's got, there it is. And then it dies.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Christmas tree lights.
So once we've got that, we can go ahead and pull a high pressure fuel pump. So there's just a few things we need to do here. One of them is we need to pull this clip. So I'm going to squeeze this clip and then pull back. See, it's just got a tab on it. That gets the sensor, which reads how much fuel pressure is here off of the high pressure fuel pump. The next thing we want to do is remove this connector. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop this up, which is a safety cover. And that lifts us up so that we can see this connector, okay? See that? And then the next thing we're gonna do is push in and then grab this and pull back, and it's gonna slip right off of the motor. One of the things you need to do is make sure the motor is not too hot for this, because you don't want to dump fuel on a hot motor. If you could guess, the recipe then would be fire. So I'm gonna push in, I'm gonna pull those tabs back, and then I'm gonna pull this line off. Nice and easy. And then bam. So that's off. You can see there it sprayed fuel vapor under pressure. And that is like the most dangerous version of gas leaking out of something. So it's super, super important that nobody be smoking around the car for the motor to be hot for whenever you do this. So like that. We're gonna clean that up a bit. And I probably could unclip this and move it off to the side, but I'm not, because that's more work. I'm just gonna take this and sit it off right there where it's gonna drain fuel all over the top of the motor, because that's always the best thing to do. Like that. And then next we're gonna remove this line right here. All right, so 19 millimeter here. I'm gonna get on this nut and I'm gonna give it a bump. And it's gonna pop off. I'm gonna shove the paper towel in there and catch that fuel. So we're gonna give that a second to make sure it drains down before we pull that nut off. Looks like it has. I'm gonna back it up a little more. Back it all the way off.
You're really good at handling nuts, Julian.
I'm pretty good with them. Yeah, lots of experience. Sometimes you need lots of experience handling nuts, Jacob. That was most of the work. So now all we need to do is physically unbolt the high pressure fuel pump from the head. So those look like 10 mils. In fact, I'll grab them right now. Why not?
You got the previous little clown car in the background.
Yeah. Smart car. Don't mess with that turbocharged Fury right there. So we got a pair of 10 mils right here. All right. Gonna loosen those up. Don't scratch up the front of Jacob's car. Run the bolts all the way out. That's one. That's two. Got a few more drips of fuel there, but again, gonna be all right because we've already properly let this drain down. And then we're gonna pull this off. Now, this is the high pressure fuel pump. Whenever you receive your Sonata 2.0 turbo high pressure fuel pump, it is going to look exactly like this. I think you got to put this plastic keeper on here on the other one, but you literally just stick a screwdriver in here and you pop this off and it slides off. You're going to pop this onto the new pump so you have your keeper. And then the other bit you're going to have is right here is this metal gasket. This metal gasket is reusable and it just clips onto the base. So you're going to reuse your metal gasket. I mean, if you really wanted to, I guess you could order another one, but it's metal, so it's reusable. So you're going to clip this onto the base, and then you are ready to stick your brand new Sonata pump, right as I drizzle strange fluids on myself. Now you're ready to stick your Sonata high performance increased volume pump that protects your motor from being starved right back onto the car. So I'm just going to check this, make sure I don't see any weird wear, because this has been in the car for a minute. O-ring looks good. I'm going to make sure the O-ring's clean. See, it's got an O-ring right there. This O-ring right here, you want to make sure that it's not perfectly dry. We've got some oil on it and that it's not hurt and that it's there. And then we're going to stick this right back in the hole where it came from. Make sure this is nice and clean. And then start at a little bit of an angle so you can get it onto this hose. We're going to push it down like that. Now you're not going to be able to get it to seat all the way down. And the reason why is that spring sits on a kind of like a rocker for a cam down there, a lifter. So there's a little bit of spring and oil, hydraulic oil pressure in there that's kind of lifting it up off the bottom. So we're just going to start our bolts and we're going to run them down by hand. Always, always, always by hand. Do not put an impact or wrench on this immediately, especially since these are steel bolts running into aluminum. This surface is primarily sealed by the O-ring, so there is zero reason to go very, very tight with these bolts. But you can see how it's pulling the pump down back onto the mating surface. That's because the bolts can overcome the spring pressure here and have pulled it down. I'm going to grab my wrench here and we're just going to give it just a few foot-pounds here or there where it feels tight, and we're going to stop. Remember, we're going into aluminum, and the actual sealing surface of this is that O-ring that's in there and not that gasket. So we just want this to be tight enough that it doesn't come loose or try to lift off of the valve cover, and we're going to stop. If I had to guess, this might be, I don't know, 15 foot-pounds, 20 foot-pounds, probably less than that. Just enough. It feels right. The good old built-in torque wrench knows exactly how far you can go before I rip the aluminum threads out. How do I know that? I've had way too much experience ripping aluminum threads out of things. So
Get good.
right. So now I'm going to take this nut. See, this is lined up on here now. This is compression. So this is just held by the force of this nut pushing on it. I'm going to line that back up. I'm going to screw this down, and we're going to go in reverse, but I'm going to show it to you in reverse in case you're uncomfortable with it. It's a relatively short video anyways. No harm. So I've snugged it. Compression fittings get tighter and tighter and tighter you go with that nut until they don't anymore, and they'll actually leak if you get too abusive. I know this nut because I've taken it off once before and it didn't leak. I know how tight I put it before, and I'm going to go about up to that and then plus a little more than you'd think. So that feels pretty darn tight, and chances are it's not going to leak, but I'm going to go a little further, and that's it. It does not take a tremendous amount of pressure, but this is fuel we're playing with here. So whenever we restart the car, we're going to leave the covers off so we can make sure we're not spraying fuel anywhere and we're not going to blow the car up. So the next thing we're going to do is take this line, nothing special. We're going to line it back up on the nipple, push it until it locks, pull back to make sure that it's engaged and that this gray plastic is all the way out, and then pull a protective cover down. Now that is sealed. And then lastly, we're going to take this connector, push it into the hole. You heard the click, pull back to make sure it's there. The fuel pump is installed. It is that simple to put a high pressure fuel pump. One last thing we're going to do is come over here because the car won't start without it, and we're going to put this relay back into the hole so that the fuel pump will run. Take this, turn it over, stick it back on. All right, so now Jacob's going to go start the car again, and when he does, it's going to take a minute for the pump to prime up and start. So don't be afraid if when you go to start it for the first time it stumbles and dies or it takes a while to come up. Completely normal. Okay, bring it right back. Yep, and sometimes it will fire right back up again, but just be prepared for the possibility that it doesn't. Go ahead. You see, it wasn't immediate. It took it a couple of seconds for it to prime fuel to the front. We could have accessory cycled it if we wanted to help build fuel pump pressure, but as you can see, it builds up and starts right away. I'm gonna walk over here And I'm gonna check and make sure that we're not dripping fuel from here or here. And I'm just gonna pass my finger underneath it. And that's still moist, of course, obviously, from us pulling it off, so I'm gonna wipe it. But I'm gonna do this a few times. I'm gonna come back and check the bottom of these nuts over the next, 2-3 minutes. I'm gonna come back and check and come back and check and make sure that these nuts, the nut isn't leaking and that connector isn't leaking before I put all of this back on. All right, so car's running. I've double checked it. We're not leaking anywhere. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put our cover back on again. Again, don't feel angry if you get some rips in, it's gonna happen. We don't know how expensive this thing is. Realistically, it's just there for noise, and probably most importantly is this little bit of heat shielding you have from the turbo right on the back side of it. I'm gonna check my connectors one more time, that they're dry-ish. This connector right here, the what I believe to be the fuel inline, it can hold a lot of fuel right here, just because of the way it's shaped. The O-rings seat like way back in here, so you can get a little bit of a drip. But it's not like an active drip, it's just wet from having come off and on. But again, this is the reason why you want to start the vehicle, run it for a while, and then come back and check and make sure that you don't actually have an active leak. This system's pressurized right now, and it's not actively dropping fuel, it's just moist. Anyways, so this is going to go back on again. I'm going to push this back a little bit, sneak this in like that, kind of do like this, a little bit like that, and bam, we've got this back on, which I said is mostly for noise and then a little bit of heat protection. And then we're going to take this, and the easiest way to line it up is to kind of line it up with the oil fill right here, so that you know you're in round about the right place. And then you should maybe be able to find all the little boopies that hold it on there. And guess what? Just like that. And if it takes you more than 30 minutes, you're probably struggling with that fuel clip to get it off. No big deal. This is a 15-minute job. The first time we did it, it was 15 minutes, and that was me staring at it to make sure, most of that was me staring at it to make sure it was the same parts and I wasn't going to break anything on the way off. And then making sure it wasn't leaking fuel after it was installed. So I say do it. You can run these on the stock tune, right?
Yes.
So
it's only whenever you start running higher boost does it become an issue and start with the fuel cuts and stuttering issues.
So even on a stock tune with no modification, you can run this if you want to get your cheap insurance out of the way. It's just going to return a little bit more fuel. It's no big deal. But if you're going to make more power, you need to do it. In fact, if your tune is worth a damn, they're going to tell you really need to go to the bigger fuel pump, and that's just to make sure you don't accidentally lean that motor out and blow it up. And
the factory high pressure fuel pump has been known to give out on stock cars as well. So ultimately, it's worth spending the couple $100 and just getting it out the way.
Yep, and the Sonata 2.0 T setup is tried and true. It's tested. It's a good pump. So I'm gonna put that part right here again. I think Jacob got it off of eBay.
Yep.
So I'll see if I can link that down below as well for y'all, and y'all pick one up and get it put on there. Don't be afraid of it. It's a really simple performance/safety measure you can take on your Elantra end to make sure that you don't blow it up.
Also works for the Kona end and Veloster end as well.
Yep, same setup, same motor setup out of all three of them. So anyways, thank y'all for coming along. You can see here we've got this all buttoned up. We're just going to close the hood, and Jacob's going to go about his business. He's been running this for quite a few miles now, driving back and forth to work.
About 2,500. Managed a trip to Arkansas as well, and that worked out just fine.
Yep. So it works. No big deal. No special tuning for it. It just works. So y'all get that done. Anyways, thank y'all for coming and watch the video. We love you. God bless. Peace. Nom nom nom. Come here, fuel pump.